On March 18th, 2026, Operation Epic Fury. And the US just dropped a devastating kinetic payload. We are talking multiple 5,000-pound deep penetrator munitions, GBU-72 beasts, directly onto hardened Iranian missile sites hugging the strategic Straits of Hormuz. We're going to break down that massive strike and a lot more today. Just yesterday, CENTCOM confirmed that precision strikes utilizing those massive GBU-72s completely obliterated anti-ship cruise missile batteries that were actively threatening US and Western commercial shipping. CENTCOM is utilizing overwhelming force to keep that vital global choke point open, despite Tehran's desperate attempts to control it. Iran claims the strait is open, but only for nations supplying them with military hardware or those they deem trustworthy, which right now looks like a shrinking list including India, China, potentially some illicit flows to Russia, and ironically Turkey. Even after Iran launched multiple ballistic missiles at Turkish territory, Tehran essentially offered them cut-rate oil as a geopolitical apology. But this tactical strike builds on the massive strategic blow delivered yesterday. Ali Larijani, Iran's de facto leader and Supreme National Security Council chief, was taken out, alongside the besieged IRGC commander Gholam Reza Soleimani, in overnight precision strikes in Tehran. The entire regime's command structure is completely on the ropes right now. They are violently cracking, and this massive leadership vacuum is widening at the exact moment American air power is demonstrating absolute focus on dominating the Straits of Hormuz. And make sure you are subscribed to Titan Mechanics and hit that bell icon so you never miss a critical military intel update. Now, back to the Straits. If you followed my tactical briefings, you know this is the final domino for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. If the IRGC can threaten the Straits of Hormuz and paralyze global shipping, that is their ultimate ace in the hole. It's the only metric where they still feel like they possess geopolitical control. But once that domino falls, once American ordnance strips them of the ability to threaten that waterway, the regime completely fractures. At this specific point in the conflict, does anyone really know who is in charge in Tehran? Does Iran even know who is issuing the orders? This extreme leadership vacuum is when internal fractures will inevitably trigger a brutal crackdown by any surviving hardliners in the top tier. And strategically, this could ignite a full-scale internal revolution. At a certain point, the surviving top-level IRGC commanders have to see the writing on the wall. The life expectancy for a newly appointed Ayatollah or a senior commander of the Basaij or IRGC is practically measured in hours right now. But let's pivot back to the kinetic reality. These GBU-72 strikes. 5,000-pound bunker busters. And here is the tactical detail that gets me excited. These were highly likely deployed off the wing pylons of F-15E Strike Eagles. This is a weapon profile I analyze constantly. The GBU-72 is the absolute go-to for the Strike Eagle when commanders need to utterly annihilate medium-depth bunkers, punching straight through heavily reinforced concrete, compacted earth, or whatever hasty defenses Iran threw over their ballistic missile reserves. And crucially, these specific missile batteries were oriented directly at maritime targets. We have previously observed the IRGC loading anti-ship missiles directly onto fast attack craft. But this operation specifically targeted heavily fortified bunkers right in that critical 21-mile wide geographic choke point of the Straits of Hormuz. This is a massive strategic victory for freedom of navigation. It is the exact kinetic messaging required to reassure the global shipping industry that it is safe to transit the straits and deliver the world's energy supply. You absolutely have to reestablish that confidence right now. And Washington is sending backup to guarantee it. We have the 2,500-man strong MEU, the Marine Expeditionary Unit, steaming directly into the theater. The devastating strikes from those GBU-72s could be the initial phase of battlefield preparation for those Marines, not necessarily to execute a massive amphibious D-Day style landing, but to secure the operational environment so they can execute what they do best, dominate that entire chunk of waterway amphibiously and ruthlessly. It is a massive operational shift if these GBU-72 strikes are initiating the final ripple effect of systematically dismantling any hard power the IRGC has left. left. Eradicating those hardened anti-ship ballistic missiles is obviously the immediate priority. That is massive. But tactical commanders still have to mitigate the asymmetric threats. Suicide drones loitering in the airspace and Iranian UUVs, unmanned underwater vehicles, prowling beneath the surface. Systematically hunting down and neutralizing those UUVs will absolutely be the core specialty of the MEU the second they arrive on station. Basically, daddy is home and the MEU is walking in to permanently sanitize the battle space. That is the ultimate strategic goal. We need your help to push this analysis. Drop a like right now and share this video with your squad. Now let's dive into exactly how these bunker busters reveal the new US strategy. Let's pull up the actual intelligence drop on X for some breaking analysis. This is the official CENTCOM post we are focused on today. It confirms that US forces successfully employed multiple, not just one, because when one GBU-72 isn't enough to send a message, you drop multiple 5,000-pound deep penetrator munitions on hardened Iranian missile sites situated directly along the coastline near the Straits of Hormuz. The intelligence specifically states these Iranian anti-ship cruise missiles posed an immediate, unacceptable risk to international commercial shipping. This directly highlights that critical 21-mile-wide geographic swath of water as the primary threat vector. While the IRGC possesses missile sites scattered throughout Iran's massive landmass, a country roughly 2.5 times the size of Texas, this specific coastal region is the absolute center of gravity that CENTCOM must lock down. Meanwhile, Tehran is violently vowing revenge for the assassination of Larijani. They are broadcasting massive retaliatory threats and have managed to launch a few remaining ballistic missiles. They have even managed to score minor hits on port facilities belonging to America's Gulf partners. So the IRGC isn't entirely a slouch. They still possess a degraded but lethal capacity to execute asymmetric proxy warfare. But let's return to the mechanics of this massive strike. The US military executed these high-precision bunker-busting operations against fortified positions hugging the immediate coastline. The GBU-72 Advanced 5,000-pound penetrator is engineered to do exactly one thing: smash through feet of reinforced concrete and vaporize whatever is hiding underneath. The F-15E Strike Eagle is the prime delivery platform for this specific mission, launching from forward-deployed bases throughout the region. Multiple Strike Eagle squadrons are currently in the AO, and they possess an incredibly high combat-proven proficiency with this exact munition. Yes, the B-1B Lancer can carry it. The B-2 Spirit and B-52 Stratofortress can certainly handle the payload. But given the required precision and the rapid response nature of hunting mobile or semi-mobile bunkers, the Strike Eagle is the undisputed top of the chart. Furthermore, if CENTCOM is executing these strikes during daylight hours, the F-15E provides its own organic threat reaction capability, whereas heavy bombers typically operate under the cover of darkness. Picture two Strike Eagles rolling in hot. The weapon systems officer in the back seat is completely locked in. The target area comes into view. The WSO visually acquires whatever camouflage netting or hardened structure is covering that bunker, locks onto it with the Sniper Advanced Targeting Pod, dials the laser right into the center of mass, and seconds later, that 5,000-pound bomb punches straight through the roof, detonating deep inside. The overarching mission here is absolute and uncompromising. Reassure global freedom of navigation, completely neutralize any anti-ship missiles endangering the tanker fleets, and guarantee that the strait does not get choked off. This kinetic action slams directly into Iran's desperate attempts to disrupt global oil transit, their final crumbling domino. Iran is still attempting to launch missiles and drones, just at a vastly degraded rate. They have secured a few confirmed hits on cargo vessels, causing localized fires and damage, alongside scattered drone attacks against US allied sites in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq. The regime's rhetoric remains fiery, but the reality on the ground is catastrophic. We are looking at incredible combat footage of an Iranian drone being completely shredded by a CRAM system defending the US embassy in Baghdad. The IRGC is desperately trying to cause localized pain and chaos with these one-off strikes, but the scoreboard simply does not lie. Multiple 5,000-pound deep penetrators are actively cratering their most vital missile sites, each one punching deep into the exact threats that jeopardize the Straits of Hormuz, systematically stripping Tehran of its final geopolitical bargaining chip. With 20% of the world's daily oil supply transiting that specific waterway, the battlespace is actively being prepped for the imminent arrival of the Marine Expeditionary Unit. President Trump actively pushed global allies to deploy naval assets to secure the strait, and while the international response was tepid, American resolve is violently stepping up to fill the void. This deployment screams absolute U.S. superiority in the maritime environment, and the amphibious Marines arriving with organic air support screams absolute superiority in the aerospace environment directly above the straits. We are talking F-35B Lightnings executing vertical takeoffs and landings from amphibious assault ships right on Iran's doorstep. Now that the heavy, hardened anti-ship missiles are being systematically vaporized by the F-15S, the MEU can push significantly closer to the Iranian coastline. Once you eliminate the heavy kinetic threats that can actually sink a warship, and you rely on the fleet's organic counter-drone systems, those Marines can get incredibly up close and personal. It is highly probable they will push in and physically secure critical geographic nodes right around the Straits of Hormuz. The Strike Eagle itself is a terrifying platform, capable of pushing Mach 2 with a combat radius of roughly 700 miles. This endurance allows it to loiter menacingly over the battle space for hours, carrying a staggering 23,000 pounds of ordnance across 15 different hardpoints. Beyond the headline-grabbing GBU-72 bunker busters punching through coastal sites, this jet routinely carries a devastating menu of killer weapons. We are talking GBU-31 2,000-pound JDAMs for absolute GPS-guided precision, laser-guided GBU-12S and GBU-24S for pinpoint accuracy against moving targets, AGM-158 JASSM standoff cruise missiles, and small-diameter bombs to surgically eliminate threats while minimizing collateral damage. Plus, it is heavily loaded with AIM-12 OAMR AAMS and AIM-9X sidewinders for self-defense or independently hunting down any drones Iran dares to launch. Crucially, the Strike Eagle can also carry APKWS guided rockets, a vastly more cost-efficient method for swatting down cheap suicide drones than expending high-end air-to-air missiles. Let's move into the 4D chess strategic analysis. This is a masterclass in layered multi-domain dominance entirely focused on forcibly prying open the Straits of Hormuz. CENTCOM is simultaneously crushing the regime's leadership decapitation strikes while methodically sanitizing the anti-ship threat to increase global shipping confidence. There is still kinetic work to be done before the waterway is fully secure, but with the Marines steaming into the AO, this operation is shattering any remaining delusion within the IRGC command structure that the Straits of Hormuz is an impregnable final stand. This is a brutal, asymmetric military play, utilizing devastating kinetic force to decapitate leadership, open the straits, and guarantee commercial tankers can transit without being targeted. I assess it will likely take another week or more before the strait is fully normalized. The MEU needs to arrive on station, deploy its assets, and physically assure that freedom of navigation. Once that confidence is completely restored in the global energy markets, I predict we will witness a catastrophic terminal fracture within the IRGC. The regime will likely continue launching desperate asymmetric jabs, but their operational capacity is shrinking by the hour, and the total eradication of their leadership exponentially increases the risk of a full-scale internal collapse. Hormuz remains the absolute center of gravity for the US strategy. Keep the energy flowing, totally strip Iran of its asymmetric leverage, and accomplish regime collapse without committing to a massive conventional ground invasion. Smart, decisive, and overwhelming kinetic positioning is the absolute goal. But let's analyze a hypothetical scenario. Let's assume the conflict surges, and Iran reveals a hidden reserve capability of advanced drones, UUVs, or a surviving stockpile of ballistic missiles. If that occurs, expect F-15Es, B-1s, and B-2 stealth bombers to instantly roll in with an armada of GBU-72 bunker busters and absolutely obliterate anything resembling a threat in that coastal sector. I am not talking about indiscriminate carpet bombing. I am talking about highly focused surgical devastation that perfectly sets the stage for the Marine Expeditionary Unit. We might see this exact scenario play out as those Marines come in hot, and they are bringing exactly the specialized assets required to permanently pry open the Straits of Hormuz. And we are talking amphibious assault forces capable of seizing heavily defended shoreline positions, specialized reconnaissance teams hunting down hidden asymmetric threats, and combat engineers equipped with advanced anti-mining drones to rapidly sweep and clear Iranian sea mines from critical shipping lanes. And they can execute this violently fast. They might even be backed up by highly advanced unmanned underwater vehicles that can loiter beneath the surface, execute covert ISR missions, and independently launch drones or torpedoes. This is the absolute bleeding edge of military technology. The US military is deploying the underwater equivalent of assassin drones to neutralize any asymmetric threat the IRGC attempts to deploy. The US just hammered Iranian missile threats near Hormuz with heavy penetrator weapons, absolutely ensuring the strait stays open. The critical infrastructure required to threaten that waterway is being systematically vaporized, and Iran's leadership is completely reeling, having just lost their de facto leader with no clear chain of command remaining. So what is the next tactical move? Let me know your geopolitical assessments in the comments below. Will we see more devastating leadership decapitation strikes? Will CENTCOM focus entirely on the Straits of Hormuz? When do you assess the waterway will be fully secure? Sound off in the comments below. This is Titan Mechanics signing off.